Okay.
Thanks. Bismillah.
Welcome back to what he's saying, the realest podcast in the world, the people's podcast, where people can not only learn and grow, but also feel heard and seen. I'm Usama, and today we have an amazing podcast for you. Our guest today actually reached out to me around Christmas time, wanted to do a podcast collab, and I love it. If you're looking to get married, if you're single, but if you are single, if you are looking to meet someone, these are the people that you want to meet and talk to. And inshallah, I have some amazing guests. I have Hiba and Zaid. I want to welcome you guys to our podcast. Thank you so much for joining. I had a wonderful conversation off camera a couple of weeks ago, so thank you so much. And thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here too.
I think we're going to change a lot of people's lives, inshallah, today. So all the single
We
people,
hope
send
so.
me a lot of DMs.
We'll see.
Inshallah. So before I start, I always love to ask the fans where they can follow you, where they can find you. If you want to give a moment of where they can find you, the both of you.
Sure. Hiba, take it away.
Sure. So we're available directly through our website. Anyone can connect with us through halalmatch.ca, or they can just shoot us an email at info@halalmatch.ca. And you can also find us on Instagram, halalmatch.ca.
Yeah. And we also have a podcast too where we share our experiences and just give advice to people who are searching.
Yeah, Diary of a Matchmaker.
Yep.
Cool. I was going to ask you what the podcast is name so we can plug it in. So Diary of a Matchmaker, guys, please go follow it and go support it, inshallah. And the first question is always important. I always like to start off about talking about your story. I know you both said to me off camera, it's a unique story in terms of how you both met, even separately. So I'd love for you guys to take it from there.
Sure. Who shall I start, or you want to start with the story?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
So if you want to sum up our story, I would say you can use the word serendipity, subhanAllah. Zaid was having his own story on this side of the world. I was having my own story on the eastern side of the world. So I'll just talk about my part. I come from a Palestinian background and grew up in Palestine. And any Arab girl out there knows that the way marriages happen in our culture is that usually a girl waits to be seen and noticed. And hopefully someone will see her at a wedding, or somebody's mom will notice her and they will propose, and things just happen naturally. But me, myself, I didn't enjoy going to weddings. I was more like spent so many years in school, so that didn't happen to me. And just didn't think too much about marriage and thought it's just going to happen when it happens. Like it's nasib, you could say. But it didn't happen. Subhanallah. And up to that point, I had no idea about matrimonial apps or websites. It's not as common back home. But when I was 30, I was planning to come to Chicago to attend the Mass ICNA convention. I'm sure most of your listeners know about it, probably. And subhanAllah, while I was browsing the website and like to book tickets and stuff, something popped up, something called half our deen. So that naturally piqued my interest. Started looking through it and stuff, and felt that I just came across a gold mine. All these profiles and people meeting and stuff. So I'm like, okay, this sounds interesting. Built a profile, started going through profiles and just trying to connect with people. SubhanAllah, just probably like 1 month after, a few weeks after I signed up, I come across this handsome fella here, and I shoot a message and things just happen.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So my story starts back in Chicago. So I started searching for a spouse right around the age of 25. I was living in Chicago at the time. I just started noticing a lot of my friends were getting married. Some of them are having children. So I thought, okay, maybe I should start searching too. So I started doing all the things that people usually do: WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, apps, matrimonial websites. Like if there was a platform or an opportunity that I could pursue, I would go for it. And this went on for years. Sometimes I would get proposals, but nothing would really pan out. And, sometimes I would meet families and I would get rejections, and things just didn't seem to be going well for me in the marriage search. So this went on for a very, very long time until finally I got to a point where I needed to have a fresh start. So I applied to school here in Canada. A lot of my family was already here, so I thought, it's time to make a move. Plus, at the time, Trump was getting elected too, so I thought, all right, maybe it's time. So that was 2016. So I moved to Canada, applied to Fanshawe College, and at that time, my mom suggested that we all go for Umrah, meaning my brothers and I. So I was just a student at the time, and I was very resistant to it because, of course, budget was tight, and I was just really focused on school at the time. So I said, no, I really don't want to go. But my mom insisted. So finally, December of 2016, I left for Umrah. And as we all know, when you leave for Umrah and if you're going to see the Kaaba, and especially if it's your first time, you want to have that one dua ready for you that's like near and dear to your heart. So I arrived there and I'm standing in front of the Kaaba and I just asked for one thing. I said, Ya Allah, please bless me with a beautiful, compatible, and compassionate spouse. And I come back and I think, all right, this is going to be it. I've prayed in the holiest place in the world. God is going to bless me. There's no way He won't answer my prayer. It's going to happen. So I come back and 1 month goes by, 2 months go by, 6 months go by, nothing happens. I'm like, did I do Umrah wrong? Is it like God testing me? All these questions start to circulate in my mind. And I'm just having no luck. So I'm jumping back on the apps. I'm jumping back on those matrimonial websites, matrimonial events. Nothing seems to be panning out. Then November of 2019 is when I get a message from Hiba on Hafteen. So I see this message, and of course, all the negative thoughts starts flooding my mind. She's in the Middle East. I don't speak Arabic. I don't have anything compatible with somebody over there. How are we going to make the long distance work? All of these negative thoughts start flooding my mind. But I thought, you know what? This is a door. Allah could be showing me a door. All I have to do is just put in the work and just walk through it. So I pushed past the negative thoughts and I looked at her profile and I answered her and I said, sure, yeah, I see a lot that we have in common. Let's see if we can make this work. So we start chatting and immediately I just noticed we have so much in common, whether it's about art, we even like the same TV shows. We were so aligned in our religious values, lifestyle, the way we saw like our lives post marriage. And so we thought, let's just see. I mean, of course, we started talking for a few weeks, and then it just got to a point where we were just like, we obviously have so much in common, but how are we going to address the elephant in the room? You live all the way in the Middle East. I'm here. We haven't met face to face. Of course, I would like to take the next step, but how are we going to make this work? So that's when she mentions that she had signed up for the ICNA convention in Chicago. And I said, I'm from Chicago. That's my hometown. We can always just meet there and see if we can make this work. But the interesting thing was that convention was scheduled for the end of December. So by the time that date arrived, we were just like, we have so much in common. Why don't we meet with the intention of having our nikah done? And so, of course, we spoke with the parents. I met her parents on Skype. She met my parents on Skype. Her parents gave me the green light. My parents gave me the green light. Everything was going great. So I'm contacting my aunt in Chicago saying, I don't have time to book a banquet hall or anything like that. Can I just use your basement to have my nikah? She, of course, says yes. I'm texting my friends saying, hey, I'm meeting a girl for the first time face to face in Chicago. Most likely I'm going to have my nikah that week, so I'd appreciate if you guys could attend. I'm contacting with one of my friends who's also a scholar down there. And I'm asking him, can you conduct the nikah for me? So everything is just panning out and it's just working so perfectly. The stars are aligning. It's crazy. So we finally meet in Chicago face to face on a Tuesday. We have our nikah that Saturday, which is December 28th, 2019. And that date marks exactly 3 days from the date that I performed Umrah.
3 years.
Sorry, 3 years. It marks exactly 3 years from the date that I performed Umrah asking for a wife. So the big lesson of the story is that Allah answers your prayers when the time is right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the right time for me back then, but alhamdulillah, He answered my prayer exactly 3 years from the date that I asked Him for a wife. Yeah.
That's a beautiful story from both perspectives. And I think
you.
when I, like, to your point, Zaid, and also I'm going to add on something to you, Hiba, when you said you went to Umrah for the purpose of, like obviously everyone has the purpose of making dua, and then you didn't see it get accepted immediately. As the human nature is like, ya Allah, like I made dua, where is it? Like you think that it's supposed to come, but it's like reality, like you're putting in the work. And then when you look back at it in like 3 years, like, oof, time flew by fast because I feel like when you're making dua, it's like you're also putting in the work. Allah's saying, okay, now I've accepted it. Now you're gonna go through these trials and tribulations. Also, Hiba, you said something which I do agree with. Me being Palestinian myself, I do realize that a lot of the times there's a lot of pressure amongst like the women amongst the Arab community. Like when you like a lot of the times you get approached in like engagements, weddings, house gatherings. I feel like sometimes it's not always gonna work. Like I feel like there should be a bit of like you shouldn't force. Oh, yeah, your daughter's been single, your son's been single. It should be a more of a natural way than you forcing your kid upon me. So I feel like both your stories are so unique. It's funny how Chicago is like the reason that you guys have met. I'm gonna
Subhanallah.
start saying
Yeah.
Chicago is a city of love.
It's a beautiful city.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It is, I actually might be going soon. Actually, this summer, one of our friends lives in Chicago, North Side Chicago. So
You
I'm
you
sure.
must have Chicago style pizza.
I keep hearing about Chicago style
Oh,
pizza, so I. To
It's
be
the
fair,
best.
Zaid, I this whole time I thought you were Canadian. I did not know you were American.
Well, actually, I'm a British citizen, so even though I grew
Oh,
up in
really?
Canada, I was originally born in the UK.
Interesting. That's even more interesting. So it's interesting how you both met on Half Deen, which I've actually never heard of. So my question is, I want to talk about your halal match service, but how did you guys go from like maybe like researching the apps and seeing that there's a problem, and what led to halal match being a thing?
Sure. So back when we were in our courting phase, I had just become so frustrated with the services that were out there, the matrimonial events, the apps. It just felt like nothing was really conducive to our generation of Muslims. And everything was either a speed dating event or just some high price matrimonial event. And or the apps, which are more or less designed for dating. And so there wasn't nothing that was really there to help guide people, to really hold people by the hand and really facilitate this process. So I pitched the idea to Hiba at the time, and I said, we should do something that's better, that works for our generation of Muslims, that kind of filters away all the cultural nonsense and everything that gets muddled in the process. So Hiba, of course, was like, sure, this sounds like a great idea. So the part that I didn't forgot to mention in the story is that after our nikah day, which was December, like I said, December 2019, COVID hit March 2020.
Yeah.
So right after Nikah, Hiba flew back to her home country. I came back to Canada, and we ended up living apart for 14 months because of COVID. So after we were reunited in March 2021, we had time to settle down and just reconnect. And then I repitched the idea to you, and I said, you want to kind of flesh this out and see if we can make this work. And then that was the time the halal match was essentially born.
yeah. So halal match was mostly Zaid's idea, and it's just born out of our own experiences, frustrations. Like with the exception of Half Deen, at least at that time, there was nothing good. There was
Nothing that
nothing.
we could see
Yeah.
that was good. And
Yeah.
now there's so many services that are popping up, but at
Yeah.
the time there wasn't much.
And we figured we can't be the only people struggling. Like there must be other single Muslims who are going through this, and turns out it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So the point of halal match was to it was a way to merge and or fuse our experiences trying to get married. So of course Hiba, as she shared, had a unique experience. My journey spanned 9 years. So we wanted people to connect with our journeys and our struggles and see that and understand that we get where people are. We get the struggle
Mhm.
and that we want to help people and guide them through that process and inshallah help them find a good match.
Yeah, so me being a woman, I understand the struggles women go through. Me being from the East, I also understand what like our unique struggles as Arabs go through. And Zaid being like Daisy grew up in the West, he's a man, so he understands that part as well. And alhamdulillah, it works out perfectly.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, too. I feel like growing up, seeing all these like Muslim apps that are so-called meant for marriage, but from what I've seen, from my personal experience and from my friends' experiences, I don't think they're really used for marriage. A lot of it sometimes is used for matches, and it's like they're making this, dare I say, like somewhat more permissible Tinder. Like I want to have so many matches. This way I can like see, oh, I can show people, oh, this person matched with me too, and I feel it takes away from the opportunities. I feel like a lot of people, when I was younger growing up, I'm like, these apps don't work. So I feel like all the services do, and I think the biggest, I guess, maybe, and I would love to you guys to answer it. A lot of the times, I guess maybe it's still around this topic. A lot of people have this misconception saying, oh, how can someone who doesn't know me help me? And I've realized that through my own experiences trying certain services that I feel it's easier this way because when someone takes the thing that you're asking in someone else and what you want, and then they can match you up together versus when you're only seeing these apps that are like that have been there for like maybe a decade now, you're only basing it off of aesthetics. So I
Right.
feel like, how do you comfort your clients when they come to you and say, "Hey, like I'm looking to get married, a sister or a brother"? How do you comfort them versus like what the past decade has been showing us?
The most important thing is just understanding them, understand their journey, their unique struggles. Like we've talked to hundreds, maybe even close to 1,000 single Muslims, guys and girls, and everyone come with their own unique story, challenges, experiences, heartache, rejections, all of that. So the most important thing and the first thing we do is we try to get to know them really well. We listen, we
Yeah.
ask questions, we have them fill out like forms, answer questions, all of that. And based on that, we're able to help them offer whether it's coaching, whether it's guidance, whether it's just sometimes all they need is somebody to bring them back to reality, because some people have these super expectations. Some people come after going through a breakup, like very difficult breakups, so they just need some reassurance. So everyone have their own story, I guess.
Absolutely. I think it's, you said expectations, and I laughed and I chuckled for a bit because I feel like, I think a lot of me being born in the West, I've realized that, how Zaid, you said that when you first met Hiba, you had this recurrent thought, how am I able to relate to someone from the East who may not even like understand maybe Western values, right? And I feel like a lot of myself at one point included, I'm like, how can someone understand me who's not even born here, who may not, and a lot of the times they'll be shocked, they will understand you. Some people are not as judgmental as the media portrays it to be. And I think with the expectations, I think that only the biggest thing is, I always tell people, and I have heated arguments with my friends regarding this topic, and I always tell them, you need to stop expecting, for example, to all the guys listening, I'm gonna call you guys out, my friends, they're always like, I expect my wife to know how to cook. I'm like, your wife, there's a sister that you meet who's amazing. She doesn't know how to cook. You're gonna make a big deal out of it. They're like, yeah, man, she has to know how to cook when I come back from work. And I'm like, you're not ready for marriage, because I feel like marriage is more deeper than your wife knowing how to cook or you knowing how to work. Believe me, like everything I'm
Yeah.
saying is like just popping from my head, but I feel like subhanAllah with your clients. So when, again, because it intrigued me, if your client has that maybe delusional mindset in terms of like these ridiculous expectations, right? And you feel as if maybe they're not ready for marriage, how do you break it down, saying, like, without being disrespectful, mind you, but like, how do you say, hey, listen, maybe your mindset isn't 100% ready for marriage? How do you like kind of train them or ease them into it? Because I feel like also maybe from a service end, is there's responsibility of like ensuring that you're not trying to ruin someone else's life with this
Yes,
person.
Yeah.
absolutely. This has.
We
I'm
could dedicate
laughing.
hours to this, honestly.
I'm just laughing because I'm like incidents where this backfired. So in the beginning, especially
Oh,
me,
yeah.
especially me, I'm like the honest type, like very respectfully and stuff. But like I feel it's my obligation as your matchmaker to give you sincere advice based on my experience as a matchmaker. And a lot of people are not open to feedback, even though they ask for feedback. Some of them directly ask for feedback, but once you give it to them, they're not open to feedback. And this left like a very sour taste in my mouth, honestly. Now I try to balance giving a sincere feedback with like protecting their feelings and their emotions.
I feel like I'm beyond that point now. Like I just have to keep it real at some point, because in the beginning I was a bit like that, but now it's just gotten to the point where we can't help you on your maturity level. You have to do that work. And as a matchmaker, there's only so much we can do. If you want to sign up for a coaching service, maybe we can help you and
Yeah.
guide you along in that
Yeah.
realm. But if you're signing up for a matchmaking service, then there's only so much we can do without really draining our energy and resources.
I even wrote a blog post on our website about called feedback gone wrong
Oh, yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that. So it really depends on the person. Some people are really open-minded and they want to learn. They want to have this like third objective or second objective. Some people are a little bit more self-protective, you could
Yeah.
say.
So the thing that we always come back to and that we constantly preach, and was pretty much the common thread between us, is core values. That's what we're constantly preaching. That, at the end of the day, yes, physical attraction matters. Yes, sometimes culture does play a role. but nothing matters more than core values. And really, those are the things that are going to carry your relationship and really make your connection stronger over the years. And so, how you assess core values, I mean, we've dedicated episodes and workshops about that. But yes, I mean, people get really hung up on things like you said, food, culture,
Height.
height is a big deal, geographic location, etc., etc. And if I was hung up on those things like geographic location, culture, language, I wouldn't be married today. But alhamdulillah, I pushed past those negative thoughts. I looked for something deeper. We connected on so many things that mattered. And alhamdulillah, everything else fell into place. And let me just add one more thing. You know, to this day, I cannot communicate with my in laws. They don't speak English. And my in laws cannot communicate with my parents. And yet we still make it work. And it's an amazing thing. So, really,
Actually, it makes things a little bit
it things easier. But the point is, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah. You know, it's actually so interesting because you mentioned a lot of things that I want to touch on them before we go to our next question. Which I think will lead to our next question. But I feel like sometimes we psych ourselves out as human beings. Like, for example, you mentioned there's cultural differences, or sometimes that could be an issue, and then language barriers. Like, the thing regarding height and like cooking, in my opinion, is dumb. Like, I know I'm a short person. Like, I'm 5'7". When people tell me I'm shorter than when certain girls are shorter than me, I'm like, come on. I am 6'2" is my answer. I'm already like towering you, but I think this idea of this notion of when guys say, "Oh, I need my wife to know how to cook," or the girl sisters say, "Oh, I need my man to be 6 feet." I'm like, do you really want a husband or do you just want a boyfriend? Because there's two different things. And I think to my next question. So I remember when we first spoke off camera, I made the mistake by calling your service an app, and you said it's more of a service. So to people who don't understand, and like they might see your service as an app, tell them the key differences from the apps and what they offer versus services like your service and like what you guys offer.
Sure.
You go ahead.
So the apps, from what I've seen, and for the most part, are just modeling Tinder. You swipe left, you swipe right, and it has a very addictive component to it. And it's not necessarily designed for marriage or getting to know someone in depth. And it's more designed for dating, let's be honest. And our service is a matchmaking service, meaning we work one-on-one with our clients. We want to get to know them, as Hiba explained, what their values are, their goals, their expectations. Are they someone that we can invest our time with? Are they someone that wants to invest their time with us? And really just holding their hand through the process of finding a match. Because it does take time, and it is somewhat of there is a growth element to it too, right? Where sometimes through the process, our clients sometimes learn that, hey, I'm not okay with this, or hey, I can be more flexible on this, or I don't know, what else can you add?
Yeah, like it does take time.
It
Like
does.
I remember the first client we matched, by the time we matched him and he got married, he's been with us for almost 2 years. And he went from like we watched him grow. Like
Yeah, he was like our baby.
He was like we felt like we were his parents or something.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful. Yeah, so like Zaid said, we match based on your preferences, based on your values, and we try to push sometimes, what is the word? Like nudge them sometimes, bring them back to reality. And then we introduce them to each other through multiple video calls. They get to see each other's pictures. They get to see each other's video introduction. We don't send anything over email. Everything is private with us. So it's not a platform. It's more like a private service. Just like an accountant works with you, we work with you.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So the apps, there's no privacy element to it. We take confidentiality and privacy very seriously. So nothing is shared via email, WhatsApp, or any other means. Even when we do present a match, we simply share our screen, we show the pictures, the video introduction, and then we have a conversation. And if they need to see the pictures again, we'll schedule another video call if we have to. But we're very keen on keeping things private.
We also work directly with the client, so we don't deal with parents. We don't deal with siblings. We want to work with you. We want to get to know you. without the influence of anyone else. You're welcome as a client, you're welcome to consult with your family, but at the end of the day, we're working with you. And once we release contact information to both parties, we provide them with something we call set for success package. So in this package, you will find the results of the personality test of your match. You get the love language results of your match. And you also get a copy of our ebook, which is a collection of activities that we designed to help two people get to know each other and assess compatibility without the awkwardness. So
Yeah,
you're
they're
not
fun games.
They're fun games, honestly.
Yeah.
So you're not starting from zero. You already have a lot of tools to work with, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like listening to both of you talk, I can sense how passionate you both are about helping your clients. Clearly took a lot of research in terms of other platforms that you guys must have like done in terms of what isn't working and what should be done per se. I think the one thing I liked about what you both said is the privacy aspect and how important that is to you, because when you go on like apps, which these Muslim apps, which I want to say the halal Tinders, I feel like there's no privacy aspect because one, you have this thing where it's just their face, and a lot of the times their Instagram is already there. Some people at this point don't even know what else is being able to show versus once you believe that, hey, there's a match here, you can find that connection. I feel it's more of a security because one, I know that now everybody's seeing my portfolio. Also, a lot of times with these apps, and I've seen it, I've heard stories, people are making fake accounts because they have your photos, and God knows if you're in that, realm. And
Getting
I've actually had a
catfish.
guest who's on our podcast. I remember 2 years ago, and she's a lot bigger now since we've got her. Remember one time I messaged her, I'm like, hey, just want to let you know, someone made because my friend showed me, I'm like, someone made a fake account of you.
Wow.
And with a whole different name. And it's crazy. And I feel like with these services, I think my one advice, I hope everyone's like listening and paying attention till as far as like, I believe that there's more of a beauty of going to a service who you're able to trust and build that connection with you. And like they take your account seriously versus when you're going on these apps, you're one, wasting a lot of time. You're just swiping. You're not really going based off of getting the portfolios. Think of like, even it's almost like that TikTok. When you're going on TikTok, you're just hoping someone says something amazing. I like that. Versus I think there's the patience that requires with services like yourselves and sitting down, being completely honest and transparent with what you're looking for versus on those apps. It's really just a photo, to be honest with you. You're looking at the photo.
Fortunately,
MashaAllah, she's beautiful. MashaAllah, he's handsome.
they're a match.
They're a
Honestly,
match,
when we were
exactly.
building the service, we just put ourselves in the shoes of a single Muslim. I mean, we up until recently, like 6 years ago, we ourselves were single. We were looking. So we were thinking, like, what would we need as single people going through this process? What do we need? What would we hate to see in a service? What
Yeah.
we want to see different done in a service? And this is how Halal Match came together.
Yeah. And even when we started our service, we were so keen and committed to like holding our clients' hands through the process that our initial service model involved taking our clients out on a double date. So we would sit with our clients for 3 hours, by the way,
At a
3 hours at a
restaurant.
restaurant, and that would be on us initially, right? They wouldn't even have to pay anything up front. We would take them out for 3 hours, guide them through the games, sit at another table, let them play the games and enjoy themselves, order a meal, and even after that double date, if they said no, it's not a match, we would absorb the cost.
Yeah, we're
So
naive.
we were very committed and just generous in our service. So yeah, I
There's
guess our
actually
passion got the best of us.
But I feel also it just shows like people who are listening. I think this part is shows how passionate you are. Again, like you always make mistakes and you always like go. But I feel like the fact that you're so willing to like try these now, of course, alhamdulillah, it's way more successful than it is. I feel like the way I see, like from what I'm hearing, the way you're doing it is much more interesting. Because I feel there's a more of an art to it in terms of, and it's gonna lead to my next question of meeting someone. Because I feel now, and my question is going to be, why do you believe marriage is both hard? You both have different unique stories in terms of you having difficulty with marriage, right? You, Hiba, being from Palestine, and of course, Zaid from Chicago, and like you going to Umrah, and that story by itself is so unique. And I can only imagine the things that you went through those 3 years before you got married. And at that time, it was still like, as you were getting married, it was COVID time. And we can only remember how mentally it probably drained people. So why do you guys believe now, or even the past 10 years, people who are, I want to say, I don't know, people who are like in 30s and younger, or even mid 30s and younger, who aren't married. And I want to say from 35 to 25, people who are single, why would you, from your experiences, What are some reasons for both of you that you believe is harder for people to get married now?
Okay, so we have to separate women and men because each have their own reasons, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, there are
Common,
some
yeah.
that are common. I would say the one thing that comes to mind,
You
and
speak
and
about
this,
men, I'll speak about women.
I say no for men and women. I would say is as I refer to, the Netflix mindset. Everybody wants a quick fix. Everybody wants to through a relationship, through the courting phase, and
Through
through
profiles.
profiles, and everybody just there's just no element of patience trying to get to know someone. And people come in with a checklist of expectations, and if they don't meet these expectations, and if all those boxes aren't checked, they're just unwilling to even take the next step. So yes, we've entered, even within the last 6 years since we got married, the need for a quick fix, or to, like I said, like the Netflix mindset. That's just become so. We've just become so accustomed to it that it's seeping into our expectations with marriage.
Yeah, I mean, just the other day I was listening to this like study about Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So they don't have the patience to listen to a 30-second clip on TikTok in its original speed. So they put it on two,
Wow.
a 30
I
second.
heard this. I heard this.
That's crazy. So it's just like you said, Zaid, it seeps into like many other aspects of our lives, including our relationships. But if I want to speak specifically about women, whether it's Arabs or Desis or just in general, like I remember growing up, what I would hear from my mom is the most important thing for a girl is her degree, is her education. It's a fallback plan. You will always have it. Just get your degree and then you can do whatever else you want. And maybe it's based on some experiences they went through, some trauma the previous generation went through, whatever. So we put so many years into pursuing our education, our graduate studies, building our career. And we think that whenever we're ready, marriage will just happen magically. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen like this because men are starting their search much earlier. We have and if you ask any matchmaker out there, they will say that there is a gap in the ages between men seeking marriage and women seeking marriage. So we have guys looking to get married in their early 20s, mid 20s, but the girls delay the search until late 20s to even mid 30s. Some of them they start at like 33. So that's just the reality makes it so difficult. How to resolve this issue, that's a totally different discussion, but that's one of the
Agreed.
main
Yeah.
challenges.
The Going back to what Hiba was saying about girls, that there is this expectation where girls are coming into the marriage process, like I said before, with this checklist in mind. Now that I've achieved XYZ degree, now that I've achieved a certain level of income, now it's time to get married, and now the guy has to be at my level. So now there's marriage is being treated as some sort of transaction rather than an opportunity for growth, for companionship, all the important things that is laid out in our deen. So this transactional mindset is also seeping into our
Yeah.
expectations with marriage too.
Like, what do you bring to the table?
What do I bring to the table?
Exactly.
Right? Are we on the same level or are we not? If there's a discrepancy, oh no, I don't think it's going to work, right? Whether there's an educational discrepancy, an income discrepancy,
Yeah.
whatever it is, we just treat marriage as if, it's where both parties have to be on the equal level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you both say is actually absolutely true. And you know what's for me, actually I'll say something about myself. I remember when I was 24, so this is like actually 7 years ago. I remember I would always have this thing, and like looking back at it, I think I was just wrong. But always ask me, why don't you want to get married? In my head, I always had it in I need to be successful first and then be married. And I feel like a lot of guys a lot of my friends, we all had that same mindset. We're like, but part of it, I also realized even if I was ready financially, mentally, I was still going out with my friends. And I always say this example to young brothers. I'm like, I would always ask them, are you still going out with your friends until like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning? They'll be like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you're not ready for marriage. 'Cause I'm like, I was doing that at 24 years old, going out until 2 o'clock in the morning with my friends, like talking about whatever we're talking about. And I told them, your marriage is not a solution. It's not going to make you settle down. If you're not settled down now, you're not going to do it. I feel like a lot of the times, like,
Yeah.
no, I'll settle down. I'm like, no, because I told them I'm not saying because I'm older than you, I know more than you. I'm just saying I went through it. I would always, if you guys ever like hypothetically someone, you tell them exactly what I told you, they'll be like, yes, Osama would say exactly that. Business first, then marriage comes second. As I got older, I've realized you could do both at the same time. I feel like you could both do them simultaneously if you don't have that Netflix mindset. If you don't have that mindset where you're still going out with your friends and you know how to manage your time. Because I feel like a lot of the time brothers have this like specifically brothers have this moment where they're growing and their friendships are now like kind of fading because they feel like they're growing and their friendships are still the same and they're not changing and they really want to get married. And I feel there's that realization, I guess, for, like I can't speak for sisters, but for brothers specifically, is that realization where like now I really have to get my act together. I'm getting close to my 30s, I'm getting close to marriage age, and I feel like the pressure that comes from society too. I know like Arab guys or just guys in general don't get as much press as girls do. Because to your point, Hiba, like a lot of girls, for example, some of them I know some of them won't get married until like they're maybe the late 20s, early 30s, because again, I think pressure also has a lot to do with it. You know, from communities. Sometimes you want to go pursue your education, but I feel like if my question to both of you, how easier would it be if the pressure was less from parents or from the community? Because I feel like a lot of the times, whether you're like financially ready or you're still educate, like you're still pursuing your education, what do you guys think if the pressure was less on people to get married? Do you think there'll be a more higher success rate?
I don't think there's some, honestly, at least from our experience, I don't think there's enough pressure from parents, at least.
Yeah.
Parents, especially with girls, parents are the ones pushing for finish your education. Don't talk to me about marriage. And even with guys, don't talk to me about marriage until you're done with you're not a doctor yet. Don't think about marriage. So
Yeah.
like sometimes the lack of pressure comes from the other side. So the guy is ready for marriage, but the girl's parents are not. They're like, you're not done with your degree. You're not earning enough yet. So maybe it's a pressure or lack of pressure, depends on how you look at it.
I would say a lot of the pressure is internal. It was kind of like what you were just saying, Osama, these internal expectations, right? And a lot of it is a result of Instagram, Facebook, things like that. These expectations of income, of I have to own a house, of degree, of I have to achieve XYZ before I am ready for marriage. And sometimes, it's not even coming from parents, it's just coming from these platforms or just what they're seeing in their environment. And what we always preach, and we'll say this constantly, is all it requires, and yes, it's easier said than done, all it requires is just coming back to our deen and what the Prophet ﷺ says about marriage. And yes, it is a requirement upon a man to provide food, shelter, clothing, basic maintenance. But you don't need 80, 90 grand to do that. You don't need a house to do that. You don't need all of these things. We've been living in a one-bedroom apartment for the past 6 years, paying rent. And
We're happier.
and I work at a daycare, and alhamdulillah, we're doing just fine. So really, people are making marriage harder upon themselves and creating these barriers that are so inconsistent with our deen.
But sometimes they're not the ones creating this kind of pressures. Like sometimes the girls' parents expect this and expect that. And
Yeah, I'd say it
fancy
more applies to the
wedding,
guys than the girls.
big maher and honeymoon, and so
Yeah.
that's where the pressure comes from.
Yeah.
So I guess
Yeah, go on.
no, I was just gonna guess sometimes it's pressure and sometimes it's lack of pressure.
I agreed. You guys said a lot of things which I agree with, which kind of like brings a point. I was speaking to my mom recently, actually, and I told her that talking about. She was asking me, like not like she didn't know, but she was asking me how like do Muslims really do a lot of haram stuff? Like, mom, yes. And I said sometimes I blame the parents, because I'm like, for example, I told her regarding the marriage topic, you're making it so hard for them to get married that they go into haram relationships. I'm like, that's the parents' fault. I'm like, you just let them get married. And whether they're financially ready or not, they can live in your basement or they can do whatever they need to do. And this way, at least you know you're not going to end up finding out your kid has a girlfriend. And I told my mom, reality is true. Like, I've seen it with my two eyes. And especially, Zaid, for you, like, obviously living in the West, you obviously know that, like, Muslims are obviously not everyone's a saint. Because I feel like if you are a saint, if you experience certain stuff, amazing. And you're able to get out of it. But I feel also the lack of pressure and the pressure. Like, you mentioned something, Hiba, which kind of, like, in my head, I always think about. Me and my friend were talking about one time his experience. He was scared to talk to a girl because the girl had higher education. Like he was just like a degree, like a bachelor's undergraduate, and she was like a PhD. And the father told her no. He's like, this person is like lacking education. He doesn't meet your level. And I remember he was asking, he's like, do you think I'm dumb? I'm like, no. I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm like, why are we ranking our status based off education? I'm like, you could be a business. I'm like, so now you're telling me a business owner who has no education is unsuccessful? Because I'm like, if that was you, he would have acted differently. But I'm like, it's the way we see our lens. And I feel like, subhanAllah, I don't think we should be using stuff as, and this is the point that you said, Zaid, which really like, I believe is really true. We should not be basing our judgment based off money, cars, or like wealth, or how successful your business is. It's really your character and your deen is the most important thing. And I remember Mufti Menk even said, he's like, okay, deen and religion, just put a 1, and then he started saying, okay, add a 0, add a 0. What's that number? He's like, all that is meaningless except for your deen and religion. Like, what's the purpose of a brother or a sister who doesn't pray at all and doesn't have good character? And good, in my opinion, good character also could be a little bit more important, because you could pray 5 times a day, but if your character is horrible, that means your heart is like just not clean.
Absolutely.
And I think regarding the whole marriage, regarding pressure, I feel like sometimes, to your point, yes, I don't like, sometimes you are right with certain cultures, if they want to get your degree, they want to get this. And I feel like sometimes that adds maybe a different types of pressure in terms of like, okay, now I have to delay my marriage and go get what my parents need to make them happy. And I feel like, because even my mom, my dad, like I feel like they would always tell me, even like my friends, they would all agree with this: get your study, get a stable job, then get married. And I feel like sometimes looking back at it, it's not the best mindset to have.
Subhanallah. And sometimes, those parents who are demanding this and demanding that from the guy, they themselves, when they got married, they proudly say, oh, we started from scratch. We came to America with $20 in our pocket. But when it comes to their children, they want everything to be ready. They want the guy to come ready from A to Z.
Yeah, the immigrant story is something I talk about a lot. So, like, I have this kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a theory, but we hear this story all the time of the immigrant uncle that came to the West, $10 or $20 in his pocket, and then he started a family. And the one thing he always impressed upon his children: get an education, get an education, get an education. And anything aside from that, you would be betraying my trust. You wouldn't be a good son or daughter, essentially.
All my sacrifices.
Yes,
Yeah.
so this is what all my sacrifices are for, right? For you to get a good education. And so yes, the desires would come for a suitable spouse to get married, and girls would enter their 20s, but no, they're putting it out for their parents. And the interesting thing is that they do what their parents are asking of them, and they enter their 30s, and the parents are now in their 60s, sometimes 70s, and they're just too old to find a match for their son or daughter. And so they're putting them in a bad spot. And it just really, and literally seen situations like this where we've talked to girls, and now parents are old. Now, instead of finding a spouse, these girls are stuck taking care of their parents. And now these parents, unfortunately, for lack of a better term, have become burdens upon their children.
You bring up a valid point. Also, I feel like we always stick on the whole financial, educational stuff regarding like, this is how I know you're ready. However, we neglect a huge part about mental and emotional. Like, how are you mentally ready? Because I could be. I think anybody subjectively could be like, I'm mentally ready. I'm financially ready to take care of my wife. I live a basic life. I could take care of her. And we all have different types of how we live, status and how we live. End of the day, I think that's all subjective. However, I think mentally and emotionally, you can tell when someone's like ready for marriage or when someone is not ready for marriage. A lot of the times, I'll see brothers who, like, again, to my earlier point, they always want to go out or they're not able to read people's emotions, or they're disrespectful to other women. So I tell them, how do you want to get married when you're like being disrespectful to other women? I mean, that makes no sense to me. They're like, oh, she said disrespectful. I'm like, so you're telling me if your wife says something disrespectful to you, this is how you're gonna act? He's like, no, that's different. I'm like, I think it's the same, because I'm like, if you're willing to respond like this, I can only imagine how it could be with someone else. And I think I tell people, but like, I'm not married by any means, but just from my experience, I always tell them, from things I've learned and things I watch from different scholars, work on your mental, work on your emotional. I'd love for you guys to talk about it. Do you feel like we view, I guess, or overemphasize the importance of financial and deregulate, mental and emotional, how important it is? And I feel like a lot of the times you see brothers or sisters, their mental system, their mental or emotion, they're not there because maybe social media and what they see on social media, or their friends. We always compare ourselves to our friends. Oh, like, this girl got $100,000 mehed. I want that amount, or whatever it might be. So what do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. I think you're 100% correct. We put so much weight on the I don't want to say superficial things, the more like the tangible things. Like you
Yeah.
said, the income, the education. Does he have a house? Does he have a car? Does she know how to cook? And they're a good match. But like you said, there's so much more. There's maturity, there's emotional intelligence, there's communication skills. A lot of marriages fail not because lack of love, but because they don't know how to communicate. Yeah, I think that's very important, and that's the responsibility of scholars to educate, khatibs at the masjid, parents. Like, if you, as a parent, you see that your son or your daughter is not ready for marriage, they're not, and like mentally, they're not there yet. They are still relying on you to wake them up for Fajr, or I don't know, you're still paying their phone bills. They're not making their own bed. They can't even fix like a small meal for themselves. They don't know how to fry an egg. And they tell you, I want to get married, then maybe you should have a conversation first before that. Same thing for girls. If all she talks about is, like you said, I want to have this super luxurious wedding, I want to have this dress, but when you ask her, what does marriage represent to you? How will you be a true partner to your husband?
How do you envision your life post-marriage?
Like, we ask our clients, what are your vision about marriage in terms of roles and responsibilities? Sometimes we get blank looks. So if you see these signs, then you, as a parent, that's your responsibility to have a conversation with them. Maybe you're not ready yet.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many times we've seen. So on our discovery calls, we ask one important question, which is, what are you looking for in a match?
Simple question.
And it's amazing how many times they have a deer in the headlights look, where they're just stuck, because we can just see that they really haven't taken the time to think that through. And they're just hung up on this romantic notion of marriage, and they haven't really envisioned what a good, true spouse is for them. And it differs for everybody, but they're probably just kind of taking in what they're seeing from either friends or Instagram and things like that, and haven't really assessed for themselves what a good, true spouse is for them.
Yeah, so we always say, like, for example, on our podcast, that your single days are your golden days in terms of building your character, improving yourselves, doing all the self-work, figuring out your triggers. Like, if you don't know what triggers you, then how are you going to enter a marriage and expect to have a healthy relationship? If you don't know your strengths, your weaknesses, the things you need to work on, if you don't know how to give love, how you like to receive love, then how do you expect your marriage to flourish? Because the wedding itself, the courting itself, all of that's the easy part. But once that door is closed on both of you, that's when the hard work starts.
It's actually so true. I think a lot of the times, marriage is obviously, like, I've always said this, and it could be a bad example, but I've always said this to my friends, that I personally believe in it. Applying to a job versus, like, going after marriage is two different things. Like, applying for a job, a lot of the times you're doing it for money, they're paying you more, or you're not really attached to your job. But sometimes you could be attached to that person you're going to marry, and sometimes it could be detrimental to you if you're doing it the wrong way. But also, if you connect your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make istikhara and say, is this person good for me? And then if there's khair, of course, let that be. And I genuinely think when it comes to, like, marriage itself and, like, all the expectations, because you said being single is gold, like, in your golden years, being single, like, work on yourself, just to paraphrase. That's so important, because I feel like a lot of the times people, I remember it was me and my friend, we were going to see our other friend, and his mom was like, yeah, I think if my son gets married, he'll, like, smarten up. I was about to tell her, unless you want the girl to commit suicide, respectfully, I don't think your son should get married. Because I'm like, I know my friend, and I don't think he's ready to be with a sister who's fully taking it seriously. Because a lot of parents have this mindset, some parents, I won't say all, some parents have this mindset where they think marriage will fix someone. In reality, no. I also feel like if you're a man taking a girl from her home who's already treated like a queen in her house, and you're going to mistreat her, then I don't consider you a man to begin with. Because a lot of the times we have this notion, on social media, of how a relationship is. But I'm like, that's just like a video or a photo. I'm like, I'm in it. Like, and you guys are obviously in it, like, interviewing different people. Social media, I don't care how big you are, you start to see the fakeness in relationships, because you know how long it probably took them to set up the whole video or set up the whole concept, versus with an actual relationship, there's more that goes into it in terms of, okay, maybe making istikhara, asking those hard questions that you guys said. Like, you know, the question you said, so simple, but so simple. What are you looking for a match? But the fact that people cannot answer this probably means, in my opinion, that their intention is not there. It could be difficult, and you could say, hey, can you please give me some time? I would need to like think about this in terms of what I actually truly want. Because a lot of the times when you're on those apps, just go back further to our further conversation, you're just looking at a pretty face or someone's height or, you know, but when you're asking, hey, what do you look for in a match? That's when you really ask yourself, okay, what do I really want for like eternity? And I think that's really important, which kind of leads me to my next question. I think we live in an era where I feel like there's a lot of people single for different reasons. Part of it could be fear, right? So I feel like from your experiences, seeing different clients, working with different clients, even maybe like yourselves personally, do you feel that there's a fear that's implemented into people as to why they don't want to get married no more?
Yes, there is definitely a fear because for a couple of reasons, people are getting intimidated by the horror stories. People are hearing scary stories of abuse, of divorce, that, you know, such and such person, you know, this woman divorced her husband and took all his life savings, and now the guy is completely broken, homeless on the streets. Right? We've heard all sorts of crazy stories. And we take these stories and we feel that they are the norm. And that's one of the reasons I feel that people are either not getting married or putting off marriage, because they're being more and more selective because they don't want to be another statistic.
These are just exceptions. We have to
Exceptions.
remember. And
Yeah.
if you do your sorry to interrupt
Go
you.
ahead.
If you do your homework right, you do your due diligence, ask the right questions, and leave the rest to Allah. Of course, pray istikhara, have good intention, have tawakkul, and leave it to Allah. Then whatever comes after, that's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you just like, I don't know, you could talk for a month, like we personally talked for 6 weeks before we got married. That's it. But you could talk for 6 months as well. But if all you're talking about is, I don't know, travel destinations and TV shows and food and whatever, and then you get married and you're like, oh, he turned out or she turned out to be a completely different person. I didn't know this about him. I didn't know this about her. Then you didn't do your due diligence. So
Yeah.
a few bad apples will always be there. But, and subhanallah, our next podcast episode we're releasing is about people who flip after marriage. You discover like a completely different person after marriage, and that's like for different reasons. But if you're done your part, then
Even with divorce, I would say most people think that divorce, I feel the general perception is that such and such person got divorced because of abuse or because of, I don't know, a hidden past trauma. The guy was like cheating on her and stuff like that. In majority of cases that we've seen, and even other experts that talk about this, majority of cases, divorces are happening simply because of incompatibility. People are learning after marriage that the person they married is simply incompatible. And going back to Hiba's point, which points to the fact that they didn't take the time to ask the right questions. They didn't really thoroughly assess compatibility, either through, you know, through the assistance of a premarital training course with a sheikh or a matchmaker, whoever it might be, and they just rely on their own whims and expectations and resort to questions like you said, travel destinations, weather, favorite foods, things like that.
another fear factor, which might be more relevant to women more than men, which is fear of losing your independence, especially if you like spent so many years building your career, you maybe lived on your own, you've been independent for a long time, you've been supporting yourself, and suddenly like marriage might look like this thing that's gonna rob you of everything, and you're gonna lose your independence, become this completely different person, and maybe you're gonna end up spending your days in the kitchen, maybe. So all these like assumptions just like create this wall that stops us from exploring beyond it. And maybe men even like afraid of losing their independence.
I think
I don't
it
know.
applies more to men than women,
Really?
to be honest. Guys really, because I mean, I was just talking to my barber, the young guy, and he talks about this. He's like, oh, I don't want a girl who's always going to be nagging while I'm with my friends and asking me when I'm coming home. I'm like, buddy, You got a lot of growing up to do. That's not what marriage is.
You tell us, Osama, you as a single man, do you feel or are you afraid that marriage is gonna rob you of your independence?
Me now, no. When I was younger, yes. I feel like when I was younger, I hated if someone might have asked like where you're going, where this. Even though I didn't mind it, like some again, my parents would ask me, "Hey, like where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go see my friend." But I feel like I'm in my 30s, but I feel like in a man's in his 20s, to just Zaid's point, there's this thing where it's like, if to a lot of guys, I feel like there's this thing where if you ask me what I do, I'm not an adult. Versus if you change that mindset and be like, my wife's asking about me just because she cares, or my parents are asking about me because they care, where I am. Like, I don't, like, for example, if you have a understanding wife and say, hey, I'm gonna go out with my friends. Now, if you go every single day, that's a whole different story. But I feel a lot of guys who are in their 20s, at least from growing up, and again, growing up in the West, I've seen that they care so much about their lifestyle that they feel it's gonna be taken away. It is gonna be taken away. Because I remember one of my friends who got married, this is like years ago. Remember, I go and said to him again. I feel like I've always had wisdom to an extent. And I told my friend who I said, listen, because our friend got married, we're not gonna see him as much no more. He's like, what do you mean? Things will still be the same. I'm like, dude, me and you, though we've known him and I've known him longer than you have. I feel like we are now like top number two. His wife is number one. So I'm like, if it's like in his head, it's like, no, things are gonna be the same. Things are gonna be the same. Bro, I'm like, listen, we love him, but it's not gonna be the same because in people's heads, you're only thinking as if, oh, my life is gonna be the same. But you're not gonna experience a proper marriage if you're only out with your friends. Like, you're not gonna learn about her. And I think a lot of people, what also scares them, talk about the whole conflict of fear, is because we try to control the uncontrollable. Like, you're still able to go have fun. And people think also that their friends today, they be their friends tomorrow. Not true. Sometimes your friends may not be your friends. So then it's like you prioritize your friends all your life that now everybody else is married. Now you're the only one that's single because you were like chasing after these friendships that probably didn't even value you. I think there's an extent to it. Also, I feel like for some guys, like including myself, I just never cared that much. Like my mom till this day, and I'm 31. My mom will be like, "Hey, Samuel, where are you going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to work." I'll even call my mom on the way back, saying, "Hey, I want to let you know I'm on my way back home." Just for her, also maybe training for me, because I feel like if my wife were, I would want my wife to ask me where I'm at, because I feel like that shows that you care. Like, okay, I'm here, I'm
Exactly.
here.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But speaking to what you mentioned about like lifestyle, people afraid of losing their lifestyle. So what we notice, especially with older clients, like the ones who are like in their mid 30s, in their early 40s, mid 40s, like whether guy or girl, that once they reach this age, they become very rigid about just their lifestyle, and matching them becomes much more difficult because they're stuck in their own ways. They've been doing what they're doing for so many years, and it's hard to, I don't want to say give that up, but it's hard to be flexible or welcome someone who might change my lifestyle or something like that. So
Exactly. The
yeah.
people that we've had the most success matching are people who have been under the or right around the age of 25.
Yeah.
And the people that give us the most stress and the most difficulty trying to find a match are people like 30 or 35 plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so obvious why, and it's just exactly what Hiba said. She hit the nail on the head. Is that they're just inflexible because now they've reached a point in their life where they're just set in their ways, and they have this expectate or this mold, and the person that they're marrying has to fit into that, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
Like even we see it with our parents, like we try to get them to change their eating habits or quit something or whatever. It's hard for them to change, like
Yeah.
at that age.
It is.
That is very true. Also, it kind of makes you want to ask you guys a question because you guys sparked an idea. Not an idea, just a thought in my head. Do you feel, for example, so okay, let's use it because you said the example of 30. Let's say, for example, someone's 34 years old, right? Or even 29, regardless of what the person may be, and they meet so many people. Do you feel because a lot of people who are single from, let's say, late 20s to like early 30s, because they're meeting so many people that there's a harder for them to start accepting someone because they feel like they're meeting so many people. Maybe they're also attaching their heart to certain sisters, or sisters are attaching their hearts to brothers. Do you feel that there's a correlation between you meeting so many people that now it's making it harder for you to like choose someone or be more simplistic?
I believe so. Whether this even applies like outside of marriage conversations, you go to Walmart and you see, I don't know, 15 types of chips for potato chips. And it's really hard. You end up spending 20 minutes there exploring and reading and deciding and all of that. So the more options we have, the more difficult it becomes.
Exactly. But if you come to Walmart and you know that I want Doritos, right? Like you are clear about the kind of chips you want and what is going to satisfy you at the moment, you'll save yourself time.
Yeah.
And you're out of Walmart, you're home, and
Yeah.
things are great. So just piggybacking off that analogy, if you're clear about your expectations, right? I mean, yes, there has to be some level of flexibility. I mean, if there are no Doritos there, right, at Walmart, then you got to find something else if your cravings are that strong.
And this is not an invitation to buy Doritos. Doritos is on the list, by the way,
Yes,
the
it is.
boycott list. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. That the abundance of options is really hurting us, and that especially that's what we're seeing on the apps. That we're just going to keep swiping because hey, there's an endless list of girls or guys on there, and we're just going to keep swiping with the hopes that somebody's going to match with
Yeah.
us.
So just going back to what you mentioned, Zaid. So if you have no idea about your values and who would be a compatible spouse to you based on your values, then the more options you see, like, isn't gonna make it easier. But if you know exactly like who you are, what's important to you, what you need in a spouse, your deal breakers, your non-negotiables, all of that, then once you spot that, you're gonna know. And you're not gonna want to keep exploring more and more and more. Because we had a podcast episode, we named it The Illusion of Options. It seems like we have a lot of options, but if you like limit it to what actually works for you, then the options are not
Yeah.
that many.
I mean, we were guilty of this back when we had a Netflix subscription. Now at this point, we're boycotting Netflix. But when we had Netflix,
Oh my God.
God, I think we would spend close to half an hour just arguing about what to watch, and we would just browse and browse and browse, and we just couldn't make a decision. And I think at some point we would
Sometimes-
just go straight to bed. We were like,
Yeah,
forget this.
forget this,
We're not.
yeah.
We didn't even end up watching
Yeah,
anything.
many times, yeah.
That's funny. That's so funny. Honestly, yeah. I can't relate to the Netflix thing because obviously I haven't ever paid for Netflix. However, I do understand where you both are coming from. I think my opinion, I can't even say too much because again I'm single. Have spoken to different sisters here and there, and I feel like the one thing I taught myself going forward, and I said never to attach your heart to someone because I feel like as soon as you allow your emotions to be fully attached and things go wrong is when you kind of go. And that's very a whole different topic by itself. You go depressed, you go the wrong way because you didn't do again. You'll hear brothers or sisters saying, "Oh, I'm praying tahajjud to for this person," but in reality, tahajjud should be a reason of like you're connecting to Allah and making du'a, but also kind of like derailing the idea of getting attached because again, you never know. Like the thing is too. I remember I was actually on TikTok and the sister was on live and she's half Afghan, she's half Pakistani, and she was saying that within the first 3 months of her marriage, she got divorced, which is pretty shocking because like again, everything seems nice in the talking stage. Whether you take 6 months, 3 months, everyone's obviously different in terms of how they believe their talking stage should be. But you guys said something. If you're only talking about talk shows and like shows or the things which are like I guess in Arabic tafiya, just useless, you're not gonna meet. Like yes, I think it's important to have certain similarities and see if you're able to communicate. But I think you also have to ask hard-hitting questions. Like I remember there's this one of my old coworkers was asking me a question, and she's not Muslim by any means, but I remember she was asking me regarding a relationship. I'm like, listen, I never had a girlfriend, so I can't answer this. Like I don't know. And she's like, she was like, listen to me. I'm like, what? And she asked me the question, and I said, listen to me. If you're looking for the purpose of marriage or relationships, but I said specifically marriage, you have to ask hard-hitting questions. Like I told her for the guy that she was talking to, I'm like, do you see him being the father of your kids? She's like, I don't know. Like that answers your first question. Because I'm like, if you don't see this person being the father of your kids, or he doesn't see that being the mother of his kids, I think that's a red flag. Because I'm like, or then I asked her, I'm like, well, if he lost his job, would you leave him? She's like, well, I want him to be financially stable. I'm like, then that's not the right person for you. Because I'm like, if I hear that a sister would leave me tomorrow if I lost my job, I actually do not want to be with you.
Of course.
Because as opposed to sitting down with me saying, hey, what's our next plan? But I feel like people's mindsets are so skewed because of like, Zaid, you said earlier, social media, Instagram and TikTok plays a huge role in terms of even young Muslims. You could say non-Muslims, but even young Muslims get like captivated by their favorite celebrities or like Muslim influencers who I've met personally will like post them and their significant other, which in my opinion, believe it takes away the barakah away from the actual marriage itself. So yeah, I 100% agree. I do have a question though for you guys because I have two more questions left, and I love to play a fun game with you both,
Sure.
inshallah, to get to know more Zaid and Hiba. But the question is, what is some advice or three things you would say that someone should look? Three things, three advices from each of you, or two, whatever, however much you want to give to marriage. How would you tell someone? What's your advice to someone to get married?
Oh,
You speak to guys, I'll speak to girls.
I mean, some of them kind of crosses over,
Okay.
right? But I would say with guys, compatibility begins with understanding yourself and not the other person. Sometimes when we start the marriage process, we think, how is this person compatible with me? And yet we haven't taken the time to assess ourselves. And so if you are somebody that, and given that you meet the basic requirements of providing food, shelter, clothing, basic maintenance, and those are the further requirements upon a man. Given that you meet that, or you met that, I would say really take the time to understand how you see yourself, how you see your life post marriage, like Hiba talked about earlier, what your triggers are. Are you somebody that is able to take care of themselves, or is mom and dad paying for your car insurance, your cell phone bill, paying for all your basic necessities? Are you somebody who has some degree of independence? If you're a university student, and that's fine if you're looking to get married while you're a student, but are your parents kind of planning out your class schedules for you, or are you doing it yourself? Really take the time to assess where you are, what your triggers are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then begin the search, but don't begin your search without doing those things first, I would say.
I would say that applies to girls as well. To girls, I would say tie your camel, be proactive. Like, don't make my mistake. I'm speaking from somebody who made that mistake, thinking that marriage will just naturally happens on its own. But it doesn't happen this way, especially for us Muslims living in the West. So don't think that the community is gonna take care of you and someone is gonna like recommend you and like notice you, and don't think your parents are gonna just find a match for you. Don't think it's gonna just magically happens like you see in the movies, walking down the street and you lock eyes with this guy. And no, you take charge, of course, respectfully, modestly, preserving your haya, your deen, all of that, but tie your camel and start early. Like, you can pursue your education, you can build your career while married and or while looking, but don't put it off.
Yeah.
That's that. Like, if I can just say one advice to my girls out there, don't put it off.
And to add to that, another advice I want to share for both guys and girls is that marriage is not something you consider when you have everything figured out. That is not the time to get married. What I mean by that is, by the time I've reached the end of my degree, by the time I've started earning the level of income that I was expecting with those things. Yes, figuring out yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses, those things are very important. So treating marriage as a means of growth, right? As a means of support, companionship, because you're growing with your spouse, you're not growing for them, you're growing with them. And that's a very important distinction. Marriage is not a transaction. That's not how the Prophet ﷺ explained our marriage for us. It is a means of service for one another. The Aisha radiallahu anha, in a famous hadith, she said when she was describing the Prophet ﷺ and how he was in the home, she would say, وَكَانَ فِي خِدْمَةِ أَهْلِهِ, that he was always in service to his family. So remembering that mindset, right, the prophetic model that marriage is about service, and both for guys and for girls, that, some days guys, your wife's not going to be able to cook a meal and you're going to have to pull through. And on the flip side, sometimes, your husband is going to fall short. He could get laid off. And as a wife, you're going to have to step in, right? Even though, yes, it's not forced upon you to provide financially, totally aware of that. But if you want your marriage to flourish, there has to be some give and take.
Yeah, I would say, just speaking to this point, I know you said like three advice, but this is important. We have to look beyond like the roles that are like, let me rephrase. We have to look beyond rights and responsibilities and fards, and because Islam provides a basic framework, but it doesn't say that a man must do this and this and this, and a woman must do this and this and this. Like, marriage is a union, it's not transactional.
So Hiba is saying that the rights and responsibilities, the fiqh, that forms the framework of your marriage, but it is not the prescription of how to build a healthy marriage. It doesn't say this is what you do from day in, day out. And so those rights and responsibilities are there so that everybody, so that, rights, so there are no violations, right?
Yeah.
And in case those two things do happen, then matters should be taken to third parties and things like that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I love that. That's so much advice for everybody. Right here, I feel like if you're single or you're looking to get married, even if you are married, actually, because that still falls in, if you're newly married, I think that falls in so deeply in terms of anyone. And I feel like that you could take that advice and help, whether you're in marriage, engagement stage, whatever it might be. Before we go into the game, I want to say thank you guys so much. I think if you're listening to this long, that means you're a loyal fan. And I want you guys to go support their channel as well, because I will be posting it on my account and the podcast account.
Thank you.
But as I promised, I'd love to play a fun game with you guys. Kind of unrelated to marriage. We're gonna get to know you personally. So for both of you, you can both answer this. Also, my first question is, what's your favorite pastime to do? So how do you guys relax?
Oh, wow.
We talk about halal match.
That's so sad and so true at the same time.
We talk about work.
We relax on the couch, or we'll watch something on YouTube. What do we watch on YouTube?
Lots of political shows and
Shows.
But that's, yeah.
But yeah,
That's
a lot
not
of our
fun.
time is sucked into talking about our clients.
Here, I'll give you something fun we do. Escape rooms. We love escape
we
rooms.
love escape rooms.
Yeah.
We do that. We do at least 2 or 3 a year, if not more.
I can't lie. I don't remember the last time I did an escape.
Oh, you should.
Oh, it's so much. Honestly, that's one thing. Even if we're 80 years old, we're going to be doing escape rooms.
Look, it's definitely fun. It's just that I feel like I think the last time I did, I was 18 years old, and I think we were just you have 3 friends who were myself, my brother, and 2 of my other friends. We're all heated, and it's at this point, it took us so long. They had to come back. It's just how about you just leave? You're clearly having a lot of trouble. You're really having a lot of trouble. I'm like, exactly. My next question for you guys is, so I know you mentioned TV shows. What's your favorite TV show?
If you ask me, I would say Frasier. If you ask him.
For me, maybe House MD.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never heard of those 2 shows. I gotta go check them out.
If you like witty, clever humor, then you have to watch Frasier.
House is also witty,
Yeah,
but it's different.
it's different.
Yeah.
In the topic of, I guess, not a topic, but we did mention cooking. So what is your favorite dish, personally, both of you? What's your favorite meal to eat? If you can have this meal for the rest of your life and you're not gonna get bored, what would it be?
Salad.
Pizza.
Salad?
Yeah, I'm a salad obsessed. Yeah.
Yes.
That's funny. What about you, Zaid?
Pizza for sure. I could eat that night and day.
Well, he
Yeah.
comes from Chicago,
like
so
that.
of course.
Deep dish pizza.
That's actually very true. So I'm assuming here that pizza's underwhelming for you.
Yes. Over here, I'm pretty disappointed.
Yeah.
I have to be honest. It's not that great.
I'm gonna put you on a spot. If you're ever in Oakville, there's a place called, it's near I want to say it's 5 minutes from my house. It's called 341.
Okay.
It's these Afghan owners. It's actually really good in my opinion. If you're ever in Hamilton has a great pizza spot. I gotta let you know the name of it, because I feel like those are the only 2 spots I would just suggest for you, because you're coming from Chicago, so I feel like anything I tell you is not to that level.
I would say for Oakville people, check out Hungry Dragon.
Yeah,
That's the
we go there
closest thing
sometimes.
to deep dish, Chicago style deep dish.
Really?
It's pricey, but it is the closest thing I've found to deep dish. And we go there we took actually 2 of our clients there once, and they loved it.
Inshallah, the next podcast will be in person, and we'll go to Hungry Dish and
Hungry
eat pizza
Dragon.
and talk about.
Oh, they changed the name though, right?
Yeah, I can't remember
Oh,
what
I
they
can't remember
call,
what it is. They changed the name. To
Maybe
something.
next time we will have you on our podcast.
Inshallah.
I am 100% down. And the last
Inshallah.
question for you guys is, inshallah, the last question for you guys is favorite season
Winter.
Favorite
in Canada. 'Cause
season?
Canada has 4 seasons.
Winter.
Summer, all day, every day.
Yeah, I know you're probably thinking now, how did these 2 get married?
We are. If there's one thing that really gets us arguing, it's the weather.
Yeah.
She cannot handle the summer. I cannot handle the winter.
I come from the Middle East. What do you expect?
So you should be used to the heat.
No, I ran away from the heat.
I'm with Zay. I cannot handle the winter. I feel like you living in Chicago, how cold it gets, and here, how cold it gets. I've suffered enough.
Yeah.
With that being said, I want to thank you both for coming on the podcast. What a lovely conversation. Everybody, if you're listening, I want you to both follow them. Zaid, Hiba, if you could tell people where they can follow you and find you. I will still shout you out on my pages as well.
Thank you.
Where
Thank
can they
you.
find
Go
you
ahead.
again?
Yeah, thank you for having us. Truly, we enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you to your listeners as well. One message we leave you with is hope. We want you to leave this talk with hope, with faith that goodness, inshallah, good marriages will come your way. And if you want to connect with us, we're available on our website, Halal Match, on Instagram, halalmatch.ca, and our email address, info@halalmatch.ca. We always love to connect, listen to your stories, and you're welcome to tune into our podcast, Diary of a Matchmaker. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah,
Thank
sounds
you,
good.
Osama. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Jazakumullah.
All right.
You're welcome. If you guys are still